Fucking Drake, dude. Fucking Drake called for a ceasefire before Bernard Sanders. Like, what are we doing? You're 850,000 years old at this point. You're older than the state of Israel by an incredibly wide margin. You're older than Israel, dog. The fuck do you mean? Like, what are you doing? What are you saying? What are you doing? Like you know. You've seen all of this. You've seen all of this stuff. You've seen everything that has gone on. You know? Why don't you say that to his face? Look, I still love the guy. I love his body of work. I love his dedication and his commitment to civil rights and justice for all except Palestinians. You know what I mean? Like, it's just same with John Fetterman. No, fuck John Fetterman. John Fetterman is new, okay? John Fetterman is like already making stupid fucking political decisions without having like any kind of real social capital in movement building. You know what I mean? John Fetterman is who gives a fuck, right? Bernie, on the other hand, is a dude who has dedicated his entire life to social justice, equality for all, like things that we all believe in, things that we were all motivated by. People have shit on Bernie a lot throughout the years. And they're always, to me, it spells that you're like a bit of a grifter when you shit on Bernie Sanders. This is the first time in my entire life where I've felt so utterly disappointed by his lack of reaction. It's very sad. Very sad to see. Especially because like the only people that are defending truth and justice in America, the only people who are vocal right now in the United States of America are the next wave of politicians that have been influenced by him. You know what I mean? And his contemporaries, his counterparts in the UK that have been just completely cast out of politics are loudly and proudly and unconditionally in support of Palestinians. So, makes me kind of sad. I forgot Bernie lived in Israel for a bit. That doesn't mean shit. What do you mean? Fuck you mean? I forgot Bernie lived in Israel for a little bit. This is entirely conflicting with his perspective. Bro, if you know anything about pro-Palestinian protests, you should know that there are motherfuckers who are in the IDF that are like, I've spent the rest of my life reconsidering all of the horrifying violence that I subjected people to. Like, living in Israel doesn't mean anything, especially if you are a real leftist. Like, that doesn't mean shit. Bro, Ofer Kassif was on this fucking broadcast. He's literally an Israeli Knesset member. And he reached out to Bernie Sanders before October 7th. Like, what do you mean? He literally reached out to Bernie. He told us here. He is an Israeli Knesset member who reached out to Bernie Sanders to be like, Bernie, you have to do something about like the violence that's escalating in the West Bank. This is going to cause a lot of problems. And it did. And even Bernie Sanders had the moral courage 2 years ago, or time and time again, Bernie Sanders has been the only politician who has been able to openly state that he is willing and able to shut the money faucet off. You know what I mean? Like, he's the only guy who I've ever heard running for president, like, that had an actual valid shot. Like, I'm not talking in comparison to dudes who are running to just like sell a book or whatever. Like, he is a movement leader, one of the only movement leaders in recent American history that I've ever seen that has said, I'm gonna shut the money faucet off. Y'all need to knock it off. You need to stop it. Ryan Grimm on Majority Report said he believes it's because now Bernie has Biden's ear and Bernie thinks he needs to play nice to keep that, when in reality everyone has Biden's ear. But I also think, yeah, I don't think so. I think, I don't know what it is. Maybe he's just old and he's just dropped the ball a little bit. Doesn't give a fuck. I don't know. It's very unlike him. It doesn't change his life's work. Okay? It does not change his life's work. He is still someone who I look up to. He will always be someone who I look up to. It would be so much. He would have to do so much for me to just like throw everything he's done for modern socialism movement building in this country, normalizing this concept, normalizing it so that people can like bravely say that this is what they believe in. You know what I mean? Everything that just like fucking frustrates liberals. Yeah, here, this is exactly who I was thinking of. Here, you want to know? Like, here's why it doesn't fucking matter if you like lived in Israel or not.
I'm probably the only person with a Palestinian flag, and I'm also the only Israeli citizen here. Probably 40 years ago, I was a soldier in the IDF. It was a very hopeful time. Everybody wanted peace. A settlement with Egypt had been made. And the next step was to have peace with the Palestinians. And when I was in the army, I saw that sabotage. You know, I saw the attempted assassination of Bassam Shaka, the mayor of Nablus. And I just saw like a mafia-run country that sabotaged the peace process at every step. I'm just here to show my support.
You're cheering up. There's a lot of emotions.
Yeah. You know, like when I was 21, if somebody told me I'd be standing.
We're the bitches that like say if you're in the idea, if you're an evil piece of shit. I mean, dude, I rely on breaking the silence. Like I follow what's his name? Bernie. Fuck, there's a dude that I follow who's pretty good. Like there's breaking the silence is comprised of veterans, okay? Breaking the silence is comprised of veterans from the IDF. You have to understand there's also it's mandatory. So you know, for me, oh, Benzie, not Bernie Sanders, Benzie Sanders. Thank you. I said Bernie. But the reality of the situation is I believe in rehabilitation. Like I believe in rehabilitation. I believe in being able to change your mind and you know, and work against things that you've done in the past. So why in the ever-loving fuck would I not apply that to veterans too? If you denounce your service, if you fucking work against it, you know what I mean? Oh, this is exactly what I was going to show you guys. If you denounce your service, if you think about it critically and you change your perspective on it and then you work to undo the damage, then you're my ally. You know what I mean? And the people that have like this mentality of like, oh, dude, you're fucking baby killer across the board. Like, yeah, sure. I mean, I just completely and utterly ridiculous. Anyway, but we've been talking about a lot of ridiculous shit. You are nice to a fault. I've written off so many people for their bullshit takes on this conflict. I am a firm believer that people will always come around, inevitably. Guys, famously, many revolutionary figures are communists or socialists and never been imperialist, military, cough, World War I cough. Yeah. Like, there are so many veterans in this community. Veterans are, the way I see it, like, the way I see the IDF is exactly the way I see any fucking, like, I see American veterans, too. You know what I mean? In some ways, it's inescapable because it's mandatory, and in other ways, it's more personal even. So like, it's even harder to break through that. Do you have hope for MAGA? I have hope for everybody. Sure. Not mandatory. Just don't move to Israel from Brooklyn. Dog, come on. It's you're making it seem like it's just fucking like West Bank settlers that live in Israel or some shit. Like, dog, there's. Like, Jews have been living there for almost 100 years now. You know what I mean? In pretty large numbers. And now it's 9 million in Israel. Like, and not every single Israeli is obviously Jewish. There's also 23% that is Palestinian citizens of Israel. But still, like, come on. The point is, or the goal is, to live peacefully, you know, achieve long-lasting peace and security and harmony. These are not like ridiculous expectations. This is what's supposed to be the end goal, not the other way around. It's not really mandatory. Goddamn Swifty stand account. It is mandatory. You go to jail if you don't do it. That's crazy. You guys are crazy. Anyway, I'm not saying the IDF is good. I will never say the IDF is good. The Israeli occupying force is bad. It's very bad. It's just that, things like this happen quite frequently here. Ron Bauman replies to this fucking guy, one has nothing to do with the other. What about is childish? And Israel isn't dismantling Hamas. It's deliberately murdering thousands of innocent children, in the process creating the next generation of militants. Move along, please. And then this fucking dickhead replies, it must be good to be you. Don't answer questions, make ill-informed or uninformed statements, and pretend they are fact. Probably time for you to get some self-reflection and try to grow beyond your limited vision. To which he replied with, I spent 4 years in the IDF starting a year before you were even born. I have a leg still riddled with shrapnel to remind me every single day. I've been reflecting for almost half a century, and with each day of reflection, my vision just gets stronger. Goodbye. I mean, that's it. Like, it's a dunk, fine, but also that's a very powerful thing. That's a very powerful sentiment. A lot of us love to think about how a lot of us love moral grandstanding from our positions, like, and the reality is that for many of us, we've never been tasked with this. We've never had a situation like this. 32% Israeli men and 44% Israeli women don't serve. By the way, I don't think you understand what I'm trying to say. I don't give a fuck that it's like mandatory or not. Even if it wasn't mandatory, I talk about American conscription, American veterans too. Like, and also when you talk about these numbers, you do realize that a chunk of that is also Haredi, I think, right? Is that the proper term? I don't know. It's Orthodox Jews that get religious exemptions, some of which are the most fucking aggro settlers, and some of which also are the most aggro settlers, and some of which are the most aggro anti-Zionists, ironically. So it's infinitely more complicated if you want to like get into the weeds of it than the way that like people try to understand it. I know a lot of like dumbasses who have just learned about Palestine and Israel last week, trying to dunk on other fucking people who are like doing advocacy from a meaningful point of view, but like maybe a little bit misguided. So people will go, oh, dude, Israelis are white settlers. And it's like, and then you see a bunch of other people dunk on those guys to be like, hello, Arab Jews are like some of the most militant and some of the most nationalist ultra-Zionists. Like, this is not a white and black situation, which is true. It's not like as, it's not the same dynamics that you think of, because you're thinking about it from a Western lens where you're only looking at the Western world. And of course, Ashkenazi Jews, like a big chunk of Ashkenazi Jews that live in the Western world are white, right? But, these are nuances that I try to describe to people. It's maybe nuances that you're not going to be able to get if you read like a couple Wikipedia pages, or like, which, I don't think is a bad thing, for the record. I think it's a good thing. Always inform yourself. But there are definitely nuances that many don't understand. But I'm glad that, inevitably, I always urge people to read on this stuff, because unless you're reading like complete ultra-Zionist, ultra-nationalist filth, and I read it all the time because I think it's like, I like to see what the fuck people write. That's my fun at night, is like I'll go to like, I think I was reading an article from like the Middle East Forum or some shit, and it's like written like a scholarly journal, and then you read it and it's like fucking incredibly dehumanizing. But unless that's like your only fucking reach, the only thing that you're reading, you're probably going to come to the same conclusions that I have after doing all of this reading for a very long time. Have you considered they're easier to make fun of? What do you mean? I love the counter of a lot of people serve in a lot of people in Israel serve in the IDF is countered with only 50% of women serve in the military. Yeah, exactly. That means a lot of fucking people serve, right? And then you have guys that go, Google the Irgun and Lehi group. The IDF was founded by terrorists. I know, man. Why are you telling me this? You think I haven't talked about this? You think I haven't read these books? But you are right. Read The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Ilan Pappé. You should. Ilan Pappé is great. You should read all of his books. Back in my day, Hassan used to be anti-reading, how times have changed. No, reading, like, it's a joke. I joke about not reading. It's very frustrating. Okay? I obviously fucking joke about that. Stop taking that joke seriously. There's a lot of people taking my jokes seriously. Sometimes because they just don't understand what a joke is, or other times they just want to like make an argument dunking on me, I guess. And then there's also this like other column of people who are just like straight up lying about things I haven't said, which I find really weird. Like there's like I guess there's a concerted effort to deplatform me or some shit, and part of that is coming from like these random fucking accounts that have no idea who the fuck these people are, being like, oh dude, the largest political streamer said that this person is like you know, I'm not even gonna get into it, but there's like all this weird shit, people like trying to dunk on me for saying From the River to the Sea is not a you know, From the River to the Sea is not like a call for genocide, which it isn't, and it's ridiculous to claim it is, right? They all want to farm your haters. I know. Who cares? My morals are clear on this issue and on most issues, no matter how hard people try to fucking deflect away from that, or to try to cut stuff in heated moments, in emotional moments where I'm not my most coherent. Okay. But seeing this is unstoppable, dude. This is incredible. Look at this. There are a bunch of people on Reddit who have it out for you. Yeah, I know. Threads is going nuts though, trying to spin the narrative. It is sad. It's sad. But if you see misinformation, correct it. If you see people fucking saying silly shit or using me as like a jump off point to you know, tackle certain subjects, you can engage in it. Saw a take from one of those people say the solution is a 3-state solution. Yeah, those people are fucking psychos. I don't think people care about the truth though, but you know, you should. I think if you could change your stance on the U.S. corn industry, those accounts would become friendly. Really? Is the river to the sea supposed to be free all Palestinians, even within Israel? Okay, I'm going to talk about that right now. I think it's important to get down to the history of this, because like this was one of those things that I saw where it was like, I said free Palestine from the river to the sea means Palestinians no longer live in an apartheid state and are free of the occupation and have equal rights and representation, not genocide of the Jews, just like Black Lives Matter never meant white lives don't matter, right? But this was another slogan that was desperately bastardized by those on the opposing side that wanted to say, oh no, this actually isn't what that means. And it's never the people who actually like are saying the slogans that dictate what it actually means. It's always those who are on the opposing side, it seems. And you know that tweet is shadow banned. When I check your account, it doesn't show up, lol. I doubt it. I don't think so. And then I, of course, used an example of what actually is anti-Semitic. I said this, on the other hand, is anti-Semitic. The conflation between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is one that the ADL in Israel uses regularly. They claim Israel represents all Jews, and there's monolithic support from all Jews for Israel. This is not the case. It's anti-Semitic. So, you know, yeah, I don't think I'm shadow banned, man. It's got 4.8 million views, and it's got 138,000 likes. So I doubt it. So, this guy said, what a fucking moron. And like, even in his audience, like even in his response, people are like, what do you mean? What did he say that's wrong? Like the fuck, like what's the problem? And I got tilted and I said, these fucking idiots love to set boundaries. Israel's killed almost 10,000 people. Spare me your snobbish whimpering. Is Israel an apartheid state which must be dismantled for a democratic one with a right to return for all Palestinians? Or is that a demographic nightmare for the ethno state? Okay. Oh, this is a good one. The shocking insight. Oh, we watched this one. So 1948 Creation and Catastrophe is a good documentary. Roadmap to Apartheid is a good documentary, which we watched, which compares it to the South African apartheid. And then Gaza Fights for Freedom is a great documentary as well, even though I think you sent the wrong one. This is the Vox Atlas. Gaza Explained 7 days ago, which is a great video as well. But Gaza Fights for Freedom is a great documentary as well from Abby Martin. Anyway, the point is, I will start off by saying this, okay? The reason why I clap back at stuff like this is specifically because I think people want to bastardize this. They want to bastardize the message to make it impermissible, to make it not illegal, maybe even illegal, but not currently illegal, but at least like saying anything that is like pro-Palestinian should be considered bad. You should not say it. That's the entire point, right? Like, that's the goal. It's like, oh, it's anti-Semitic. Don't say it because it's anti-Semitic. So to which I responded with, like, I hate having this weird back and forth with liberals. Like, do you believe the Palestinians deserve a life of dignity alongside Israelis, or will you keep defending an apartheid under the guise of security concerns? The everyday brutality and sheer arrogance is what caused October 7. Okay? And the thing is, it is, I think this was another person that was, like, responding to me. She said, lol, was I possibly wrong on my last post? It doesn't matter. I can still morally posture on this other point, which I didn't even change points. I don't know why these people think that they're like debating. I don't know who the fuck they're debating. I don't know what they're debating, because this is not a, like, I didn't change my stance at all. As a matter of fact, it's like pretty fucking straightforward. She said, yes, assuming Palestine is not a sovereign state, then it absolutely is apartheid. If it is a sovereign, then it's occupation. Do you think from the river to the sea isn't a dog whistle for Israel eradication? I said, great, I'm glad we agree on the facts. Yes, this is about ending Israel's apartheid so that all Palestinians and Israelis can live in this area freely without having to worry about the occupying ethno-state's demographic concerns. Because that is the major point here. The point of contention here, like the reason why Palestinians are permanent refugees, basically, 6 million of them not in Israel, 5 million of them under Israeli occupation, is because Israel has a demographic concern, which is, of course, an insane thing to openly admit. And in order to be able to openly admit that, you have to say, well, this demographic concern is actually a security concern because Israel must remain a Jewish ethno-state. If that doesn't happen, then Holocaust 2 is like going to happen immediately. Some people legitimately believe this. Other people, I think, cynically weaponize this. But ultimately, that is the goal. Like, that is the mentality. If you want to understand it, that's where it comes from. So to which she responded with, I guess I will ask you again, do you think from the river to sea isn't a dog whistle for Israel eradication? When Hamas adopted this slogan, it meant to obliterate Israel and kill all Jews. And then she, of course, dropped the 88 Hamas charter, to which I replied, yes, in 88, Hamas was a marginal group with very little support when they used this slogan that you admit predates them. Hamas also says free Palestine. Does it change the meaning of this too? They've also revamped their charter in 2017, if you place a lot of value in their words. I don't. So from what I understand, people were replying to me saying she didn't know anything about this issue until 3 weeks ago. He's been using hypothetical reverse genocide to justify Zionist oppression for years when it's always been Israel doing the real genocide. I don't know who you're talking about. So the point is, the underpinnings of her argument are pure racist sociopathy. It hinges on the idea that Palestinians are rabid Jew-hating monsters that only exist to antagonize Jewish people. Yes. So point is this. The reason why I replied to this is because I hear it a lot. Lonerbox? Wait, Lonerbox is a Zionist? I've watched one video from him. I watched one video of his, and it was pretty good. It was about, what do you call it? It was about Benjamin Netanyahu and Ben Shapiro lying about the history of peace negotiations, which was very good. Is he a Zionist? I don't think so. He's a soft Zionist or Zionist with extra steps. He used to be worse, but he got better. I mean, he hates you. Does he? I've talked to him. I told him that I really liked his Palestine video before. Lonerbox is going full Zionist. He's Lebanese. I think I would be shocked. I don't think he is. I would be shocked if he is. It's odd to be a Lebanese Zionist. Anyway, whatever. But he does seem too informed on Israeli-Palestinian history to like actually. His takes about Israel-Palestine are pretty dog shit, but most of his takes are all right. He has some criticism of you about Ukraine, but the video aside didn't demonize you. Maybe that's changed. I don't know. He made like 4 videos shitting on you. How do you not know he hates you? I mean, dude, there's a lot of people who hate me online. I don't even fault them. You know, there's a lot of fucking shit ass information about me out there. Some Phoenician Christian Lebanese people hate Palestinians with a passion. I mean, yes, but also he's defended the phalangists in Lebanon. No shot. No. Okay, I think we're playing telephone. I'm done. I'm done listening to people in the chat, but that would be insane. I doubt it. Okay. I'll look it up for myself, which I say that, but I probably won't. I say I'll look it up, but I most likely will not be looking it up. Let's be real. But I'd be shocked. You don't fault them for hating you? Yes, man. There's a lot of fucking shit out there. Dude, I read shit that people say about me, and I hate myself, okay? I'd be like, yeah, if that's the only thing I've ever fucking seen about this guy that I don't know otherwise, I would be like, yeah, this guy fucking sucks. You're right. Do you know how much misinformation is out there? Motherfuckers still are like, Hassan loved. Like, there will be upvoted threads everywhere online still to this day that goes, Hassan loved that Ukraine was invaded by Russia. Still. And it's like people literally sucking one another's cocks. At that point, it might as well be true. You know what I mean? So many motherfuckers say that. So many motherfuckers say that. At that point, is, you know, like, yeah, people will drop and say shit like I'm a rapist because I went to a brothel in like 2010. Okay? And have been like unconditionally pro sex work. I've literally dated a porn star. Like, I just saw a tweet saying you're hypocritical for calling a ceasefire because you never called for one in Ukraine. Yeah, see, that's what I mean. There's so much info out there that's like readily available. I stream every single day. You could come in here and ask me. But like, the point is, most people don't want to do that. They just want to like circle jerk in their hate shit. Like, I have literally demanded a ceasefire in Ukraine multiple times. And when I said it, everyone said I'm an appeasement Andy. They said I'm Neville Chamberlain. And that actually worse, they said I'm Hitlerian. Most common comment I see on your videos is, wow, rare Hassan W from someone who's obviously never watched you. Yeah. So that's my point. Like, there's so much psychotic info out there. All it takes is like a couple designated. Those liberal streamers don't want to just ask you questions in your stream. They want you to have them on stream to platform for debates. I mean, if people are going to be good faith, maybe I should start fucking talking to some of these motherfuckers and trying to get their audiences to recognize that, like, I'm not this fucking person that they think I am. But also, I can't help but feel like I'd get farmed in that situation. Anyway, regardless. How do we get here? Because I was talking about from the river to the sea. Okay? Everyone who follows YouTube politics knows a small set of facts about each creator they don't like. Yeah, but the facts are always like insane shit that is completely, like, at least for me, sometimes I'll see like sometimes I'll look at like an account. I'll look at like a random like meme account that mentions me as a joke, and in the fucking like in the comment section, people are like, Hassan enslaves his editors. And I'm like, bro, that was a lie from like 5 years ago. Like, how are there people still lying about shit from 5 years ago? There's so many better lies that you can say from like recent times. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, it's crazy. Anyway, yeah, they've said I've enslaved my mother. People still talk about Armenian genocide. That's a TYT era smear. Yeah, that's true. People be like, oh, dude, remember when Hassan always denied the Armenian genocide? Would I never have? It used to be that I'd see what were essentially bad faith interpretations of things you actually said. Now it just seems like mostly unhinged shit. Yeah, I think like that level of hatred and lol cow momentum just goes in one direction until like it's robbed you of your core identity. You've become this unhinged madman who dedicates their entire lives, it seems, to just being like, this guy is bad. You guys should know he's bad. And here's why he's bad, because he's done all of these bad things. You know? There are definitely, he hasn't defended the phalanges in Lebanon. The tweet literally has hundreds of likes on Reddit. It's a fake screenshot. It tricked many people. Thank you. There's no fucking shot he would defend the phalanges in Lebanon. That's insane, bro. That's like Christian fascist militias. Like, what the fuck? This is what I mean. Y'all are fucking delusional, dude. Come on, exercise a little bit of critical thinking. Jesus Christ. Fuck, man. Did you know Mia Khalifa even had a Lebanese forces tattoo on her wrist? I've heard that about Mia Khalifa as well. This is why I hate online debates so fucking much. Yeah. Why the fuck would you listen to this parasocial ass chat anyway? I mean, I usually don't. It's pretty funny. Yeah. My haters will say I'm bad because the Jenks company's called the Young Turks based off the group. Yeah. It's like 8 different degrees of separation. Like, I'm bad because Jank owns the Young Turks, which is bad because the Young Turks are the paramilitary group. Like, that's what it was named after. And not because, like, Jank was young and Turkish at the time when he first started it. And that it was like a common term used in the English language as well, like the record label, the Young Turks. Like, to say that this means that you're like a young Turk, or like a progressive. So he wasn't Turkish at the time, but he definitely was. But he was young. I was watching a League of Legends show, and one of the co-hosts was talking about the underage brothel thing to discredit you. Dude's supposedly a journalist. Underage. Yeah. It's not even that I went to a brothel in 2010 that was busted, raided for literally tax evasion, and then successfully sued the German government and won back like hundreds of thousands of dollars for the smear campaign that they, I guess, engaged in. Okay. But now it's like an underage brothel, and like, I participated in it. Like, I'm the one who did it. Like, this is an insane thing to lie about. But yeah, if you don't like someone, you could just like lie about them and say that they're like a pedophile rapist, and that's like normal now in politics. Yeah. Yeah, it increases like the price of my fucking mega mansion. You know what I mean? Yes, I have seen what Daniel Day-Lewis has written about going to Gaza and his experience in Gaza. It changes you. I didn't realize how many people here are anti-sex work. It's like they don't listen to what you say. Yeah, no, there's a lot of people who are anti-sex work who get like very frustrated about it. But anyway, the free thinkers in Hassan's chat be like, Hassan gets clip chimp smeared for it and has fake shit said about him. Different creators on the left uses clip chimp, smears them without any basis. Yeah. So, I mean, this is true though. If you repeat a lie long enough, it becomes the truth. Yeah. And the thing is, like, I have, you know, if you have enough cyber stalkers, and I certainly have my fair share, it don't matter. You know, you do get oh, and then she turned around and said, why are you acting like you don't know what a dog whistle is? I didn't even see this. This is from an hour ago. Why are you acting like you don't know what a dog whistle is? You wouldn't accept this argumentation for far-right dog whistles. Hamas also says decolonize Palestine. Not all catchphrases are dog whistles. From the river to the sea, free Palestine is a dog whistle based on the historical meaning it holds for Hamas. It's not. If it's a historical phrase that like predates Hamas is she also personally admitted. Why am I at a certain point? It's like I realized people were saying that she didn't know anything about. People said that she didn't know anything about Israel-Palestine 3 weeks ago, and then like started reading Reddit stuff. So I guess like maybe I should not deal with people like that. Maybe they'll keep reading and they'll eventually come to the same conclusions. I don't know. Oh my God. What is this? No Israelis, a civilian crowd outing themselves. No Israelis, a civilian crowd outing themselves. Who are these people? I don't know who these people are. This has like 166 likes. Like, I don't get it. Like, this is what I don't understand. Like, what is this supposed to be reflective of a broader movement? It's not. I don't think it is. Are there people who do have this perspective? Of course there are. Guess what? You know who else? You know who else has infinitely more genocidal points of view on the other side, the side of the militarized state? Motherfucking people who support Israel unconditionally. So, you know, it's not about which side has more racists, because I think Israel wins that by a fucking long shot. It's more so about, you know, which side is doing the harm, which side is doing the damage, and how do we stop it? All right. Yeah, Ofer Kasif says too little, too late, and too little, but finally Sanders opens his mouth against the war crimes that Israel commits. Like, yeah, we're having this conversation while, like, yeah, thousands of Israelis are in front of Bibi's house calling him for him to resign. The hostage families have made a fucking, the hostage families have made a fucking tent city, protesting in the streets, demanding a ceasefire in Israel. Meanwhile, here in America, we're talking about people ripping the fucking hostage signs off. Meanwhile, the fucking hostage families are asking for the same shit that the people who are pulling the fucking hostage posters off here in America are demanding the same shit. It's so frustrating. It's so fucking frustrating to have this back and forth, to constantly have this conversation without like actually looking at who wants what. And we can't have the conversation on the boundaries of who's doing the harm and how to stop it. We must have the conversation on like these aesthetics, these aesthetic boundaries. Like, do you condemn Hamas? Well, I got you. You have condemned Hamas, and also, well, everything is Hamas. Did you know that everything is Hamas? Everything that predates Hamas is also Hamas. Like, at a certain point, it becomes really fucking stupid, because if you look at it critically, you recognize that the colonial power in this circumstance, or the state in this situation, dictates the level of violence. That's how this goes. So why are you accepting like you don't know what a dog whistle is kind of fucking gross and immoral and disgusting, especially when it's like white Americans who don't know fucking shit about Palestine or Israel, who just learned about it yesterday, saying this type of shit to motherfuckers like myself who do know, who has been engaged in advocacy for years, but also even way more gross than someone like myself, but yelling at Rashida Tlaib over it, who is fucking Palestinian. Like, what's the implication? That she secretly like wants to genocide the Jews? Is that what you think it is? And she's just like trying to do a little dog whistle here and there. And if I dog whistle a little bit harder, maybe then, everyone will come to terms with it. Like, it is such an insane thing. Like, it is an insanely racist thing. You have to understand, a lot of people do not consider Islamophobia to be a real fucking thing. God damn it, because of fucking Sam Harris. A lot of liberals, okay? A lot of liberals just pull the fucking fascism ripcord the moment that you start talking about Arabs or Muslims as though they're human beings. Like, and they can't just openly come to terms with that racism that they have in the same way that, like, no goddamn conservative Christian fascist is going to openly admit they're fucking racist, and they're going to duke it out in the fucking battlefields nonstop. So they just try to use progressive language and liberal aesthetics to be like, no, but you don't understand. It's a national security concern. It's a national security concern. Very odd. Anyway, Projecting genocidal intent onto even the mildest call for justice for Palestinians is long been a staple of Israeli Hasbara. Exactly. There are people who literally say free Palestine is a call to kill all Jews, okay? When Palestinians call for freedom from the river to the sea, they're calling for decolonization and the dismantling of this racist colonial entity which dominates their lives and seek to replace it with a state that would not exist at the expense of the subjugation of others. It's that simple, which is what I've tried to describe time and time again with many different ways of explaining it. But also, let's talk about another thing here, right? Let's talk about another thing. Let's get to the fucking history of it, right? Here's the forward.com article that Humanist Report sent. From the river to the sea doesn't mean what you think it means. Over the weekend, scholars and social justice activist Mark Lamont Hill apologized for ending his recent remarks at United Nations for calling for a free Palestine from the river to the sea. I found this to be incredibly gross when he got fired for this. He is literally a fucking scholar and a historian, and he got fired for making remarks at the United Nations that ended with from the river to the sea. Think about that. Like, think about how gross this is. This was all the way back in 2018. This was he was at CNN at the time. His apology came after 3 days of furious online attacks and criticism from many people who felt deeply hurt by his remarks. Okay? Critics have pointed to Hamas's use of this phrase to claim that Hill was either deliberately parroting a Hamas line that calls for Israel's elimination, or at the very least, ignorantly repeating a deeply offensive and triggering phrase. Yet lost in all these discussions is an acknowledgement of what the phrase actually means and has meant to Palestinians of all political stripes and convictions throughout the course of the past 100 years, because this does predate, in some respects, the Nakba, or the inception of the Israeli state, but certainly throughout the past 75 and certainly throughout the past 56 years, okay? The Palestinian plight and Palestinian liberation has been a consistent interest, okay? The tactics have shifted, the ideals maybe have shifted, or ideological militancy, even what kind of militancy and what level of violence as a retaliatory effort has changed throughout the years. But the morals of this movement have not. The morals of this have always been about liberating Palestinians from colonial occupation, liberating Palestinians so they can go back to their homes, liberating Palestinians to ensure that they can live a life of dignity. Doesn't matter who they're living alongside. And the idea that this, in and of itself, means that it just actually fucking eradicates all the Jewish people living in Israel is obscene. It's ridiculous. One, it can never happen. And two, it should not happen to begin with. The point is not revenge. The point is justice. Okay? Justice is not revenge. Justice is to ensure that there is permanent security for everyone living there. Okay? But it's a matter of projection. But I'll get to that in a second. I'll get to why this is projection in a second. We'll talk about the Likud Charter, which is the, power that has been voted in through coalition governments time and time again. It helps remember the context in which Hill delivered his original remarks. He made them last Wednesday as a part of the special meeting of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People in observance of the United Nations International Solidarity Day with the Palestinian people, which is held in the final days of November each year. The date is important. On November 29th, 1947, the United Nations General Assembly voted to partition Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. While Jews in Palestine rejoiced, the country's Arabs bitterly opposed the partition plan. This is important to understand. The reason why they bitterly opposed it was because the partition plan, which, by the way, from today's lens, looks fucking awesome for the Palestinians because of how awful the circumstances have been for the Palestinians over the course of the past, 75 years. However, the partition plan at the time gave 33% of the population 53% of the land. 33% of the population that had only been there for like the past 10 to 20 years, as opposed to the population that was there for hundreds of years. Of course, this was considered completely unacceptable, especially completely unacceptable because of the assurances that were given to the Palestinian people, who were also engaging in their own post-colonial movement in the aftermath of the Ottoman Empire, as they betrayed the Ottoman Empire specifically so that they could have their own fucking national independence. The British, of course, obviously turned around and fucked them over. The reason was that they all saw Palestine from the river to the sea as one indivisible homeland. They invoked the story of Solomon and the baby to explain their stance, like the real mother in the parable, who begged Solomon to refrain from splitting her baby in half. Palestinian Arabs could not stand to see their beloved country split in two, and they saw the Zionists' eager reception of the plan as an ominous sign that they intended to conquer the whole of Palestine, which they were right. Is this map accurate at all? It's reductive. These maps are always reductive, but it doesn't matter, because this map is correct, and it's gotten even worse, the last one. Okay? Moreover, the proposed borders of the two states meant that the Jewish state would have roughly 500,000 Palestinians living in it as a minority. And while the Israeli narrative holds that those Palestinians would have been welcomed as equals in the new Jewish state, the clashes between Jews and Arabs in Palestine that followed the UN vote, particularly the attacks by Zionist militants and the subsequent forcible removal of Palestinians from their homes and lands in areas allotted to the Jewish state, led Palestinians to conclude otherwise. As for those Palestinians who managed to remain on their lands in the new Israeli state, they were eventually granted citizenship, but it was clearly subordinate to the status of Jewish Israelis. They were subject to military rule rather than civilian law, which meant they needed permits from the military governor to travel to work and school. They also encountered widespread prejudice from Israelis, who saw them as a benighted traditional underclass in need of a state's benevolent modernization, which is ironic because they also treated the Arab Jews that came in a similar manner. However, not as bad as the Palestinians. Remember this distinction. Because Israel is supposed to be a Jewish ethno-state by design, this is the Zionist design, there is a different classification for Arab Muslims and Arab Christians in comparison to Arab Jews. This in and of itself should be a good red flag for many. Many should look at that and go, that seems a little weird, because there's a lot of Arabs in Israel, but as long as they're Jewish, they're full-blown citizens, but if they're not, they don't have the same rights? Like, what's going on? The fuck? So remember that. The designation internally inside of Israel is Arab and Jew. This is false. There are a ton, millions of Arab Jews, but they both themselves do not consider themselves to be Arab. Okay? And the Israeli government does not consider them to be Arab. They consider them to be something different. They consider them to be Jewish. And Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, living under Jordanian and Egyptian rule respectively, faced authoritarian crackdowns that prevented them from being able to fully express their political views. So remember, there's also this part of the problem too. At least Egypt had like some semblance of Palestinian self-recognition in Gaza, right? But the Jordanian rule was also kind of brutal. The Egyptian one too. So here's some good books on this as well. Police encounter security and surveillance in Gaza under the Egyptian rule. There is the Palestinian refugees in Jordan from 1948 to 1957. Routledge Library Editions, Jordan. This is the book. Here you go. Wait, hold on. Let me see this one too. Oh, the other one is where's the other book? I'm losing it. Where'd it go? Okay, whatever. Let's continue. So, in other words, after 1948, Palestinians were not able to live with full freedom and dignity anywhere in their homeland. That's how the call for a free Palestine from the river to the sea gained traction in the 1960s. It was part of a larger call to see a secular democratic state established in all of historic Palestine. Palestinians hoped their state would be free from oppression of all sorts, from Israelis as well as from Arab regimes. And the most popular component of this came with the PLO. The call for action was accompanied with a unique idea at the time of a singular, solitary, secular state. That is what Israel fears the most. Okay? You have to understand that has never been a consideration for the Israeli government. It's never been a consideration for Israel in general. That is what Israel fears the most. A singular, secular state that is democratic, that offers equal rights and equal representation to all, with a right to return to all Palestinian citizens. Why? One must ask the question, why? If we are to be honest about it, it is because it is not a real democracy, but an apartheid. It is not a real democracy, but a Jewish ethno-state. That is precisely what it is. And it's not like this is a hidden secret. It is very openly stated time and time again by founders, by current and previous Knesset members, over and over again. This call for maintaining the demography of Israel, to maintain the Jewish superiority, and also the Jewish percentages higher, has always been the most important consideration. Now, you might look at that and believe the security concerns on the other hand, which Ben Shapiro and the like will regularly reveal. They'll say, Arabs have 22 states. Why do they want a 23rd one? Right? Why can't Israel have a Jewish ethno-state in the same way that Arabs have an ethno-state? And it's like, none of this is the Palestinians' fault. None of that is the Palestinians' fault. This does not justify, unless you think the entire Arab world is monolithic, okay, and they are single-minded and they all operate on Jew hate in the way that Ben Shapiro claims that they do. You cannot make the Palestinians suffer for the crimes of other Arab countries that had their own motivations, that had their own national movements. That's why the puzzle piece always is Islamophobia and anti-Arab racism. That's the missing puzzle piece from the equation every single time. Because this would make no sense otherwise. Anyway. Palestinians hoped their state would be free from oppression of all sorts. To be sure, a lot of Palestinians thought that in a single democratic state, many Jewish Israelis would voluntarily leave, like the French settlers in Algeria did when that country gained its independence from the French. Their belief stemmed from the anti-colonial context in which the Palestinian liberation movement arose. That's why, despite the occasional bout of overheated rhetoric from some leaders, there was no official Palestinian position calling for the forced removal of Jews from Palestine. This continued to be their position despite the Israeli media campaign following the 1967 war that claimed Palestinians wished to throw Jews into the sea. While Palestinians viewed Zionists as akin to colonial settlers, Jews who were willing to live as equals with the Palestinians were welcome to stay. In his 1974 speech to the UN, Fatah leader and PLO chairman Yasser Arafat declared, "When we speak of our common hopes for the Palestine of tomorrow, we include in our perspective all Jews now living in Palestine who choose to live with us there in peace and without discrimination." This is why I get frustrated. I get frustrated with this attitude. You want to know why? Because this has been a clear and coherent message time and time again that has cut through everything else, okay? There were many different militant factions, but if there was one person who held on to a level of popularity, especially especially when he reached a point of recognition from Israel. That man was Yasser Arafat. That was the PLO. Okay? And the Israeli government absolutely destroyed him. They destroyed this movement deliberately. They used it as a stalling tactic as they continued to shit all over Palestinians, knowing full well that they had no interest in giving them any kind of national independence, any kind of autonomy. Anyone who tells you otherwise is either a liar or a buffoon who is oblivious to the history. Okay? Now, why does this frustrate me the most? Why does this frustrate me so much? Because while this is the clear guiding principle, and it is objectively a moral right, are there people that take it one step further, especially in the Western world? Are there college campus activists or whatever the fuck people chirp about nonstop that might have different perspectives than this, that go beyond this? Certainly. But what difference does that make? Are they out there getting bombed? Are they being blown to bits? Are they living in the fucking West Bank and having to flee their homes in the middle of the night because some settlers came in and fucking threw a Molotov cocktail at it? No. Who gives a shit? It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous when you point to like a fucking charter in a college campus or something and be like, look, I knew it. They are genocidal. Look at this fucking guy. He's really angry. He's really angry and he said something that means like the entire Palestinian movement is actually full of people who are rabidly anti-Jew. They want to kill all the Jews. And it's very frustrating. It's very, very, very frustrating. And it's done deliberately. It is done deliberately to obfuscate the truth. It's done deliberately to constantly go on this back and forth where we're having a conversation about what words mean. And is this literally the same as like Nazis saying Arbeit macht frei? I've heard that. I've seen that. Gas the Jews is an inspiring call for comedians to bring laughter and comedy. What a disgusting freak to look at a Palestinian woman who's saying from the river to the sea is an aspirational call for freedom, who correctly talks about the history of the word. This fucking donkey. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you turn around and try to correct the Palestinian woman telling you what this slogan fucking means? They Jew hate us. This is why we hate them. What? No. Hamas and Fatah both cut women out of politics, but they led the first intifada. Their efforts were hijacked. Women led the first intifada, and Arafat hijacked it and cut them out of negotiations. But all media talk about the first intifada that this is when Hamas was created. Damn, dude. I don't think Palestinians should be liberated because they weren't feminist enough. There wasn't enough girl bossing happening. Meanwhile, bro, Palestinian liberation had a fuck ton of girl bosses. Okay, look up the PFLP. There's some fucking real girl bosses out there. Trust me. Okay, yeah, Layla Khaled is a good example of a girl boss if you want to understand. Not that it fucking matters. Where were we? Let's continue. In the 1980s and 1990s, Fatah and the PLO changed their official stance from calling for a single state to supporting a two-state solution. Okay? Many Palestinians, particularly the refugees and their descendants, saw them as abandoning the core of their homeland and acquiescing to colonial theft. They were allowing the proverbial baby to be split. With Fatah seen as selling out, Hamas picked up the call for a free Palestine. From the river to the sea, it sought to burnish its own anti-colonial bona fides at the expense of Fatah. And although many people from the 1988 charter point to the 1988 charter as evidence of its hostility to Jews, in fact, the group long ago distanced itself from that initial document, seeking a more explicit and anti-colonial stance. Moreover, in its 2017 revised charter, it makes it even clearer that its conflict is with Zionism and not with Jews. And notwithstanding the extreme rhetoric of some leaders on both sides, a recent joint poll shows that only a small minority of Palestinians see expulsion as a solution to the conflict, 15%, which is incidentally the same percentage of Israelis who view this as the only solution. I don't know if that's still the case, by the way, on the Israeli side. This was in like around 2018, so who knows? 2017. Even in 2017, a majority of both Israelis and Palestinians had supported the two-state solution, by the way, which is why it's like fucking ridiculous. Conservatives argue this all the time with the Confederate flag, a post-war symbol of the Confederacy, how liberals, Northerners can't change its cultural meaning of the flag. It's a gross double standard. Yeah, except the conservatives are wrong. The Confederates were wrong. They were fighting to preserve slavery. So waving the fucking the stars and bars like that is a continuation of that racism. Whereas from the river to the sea, no, I know you're agreeing with me, but there are people who fucking use that as an argument. Whereas from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free has always been about having equal rights and equal representation for Palestinians and Israeli Jews living on this fucking land. That is what's frustrating about this. It is always and forever those who are humiliating and destroying this population of Palestinians that want to endlessly try and bastardize what they say when they want to be rid of colonial subjugation. It's always those who are in power who destroy these fucking movements. The morality is clear. It is correct. It is righteous. It is righteous. And a lot of liberals who want to defend Israel cannot look away from the immorality of apartheid. They cannot look away from the immorality of the Zionist movement and advocacy, which is why they choose to repeat lies that they've heard from others who defend the apartheid. That's the point. You can't look at this objectively, so what must you do? Say they're all Jew haters. Say that these people in America, these protests that are led by Jewish organizations, Jewish anti-Zionist organizations, they are all those who chant this are actually also haters of Jews. It is objectively ridiculous. And for a very long time, many people in this movement were afraid to fucking stick up and say something. That time has passed. That's why you see thousands of people in the fucking streets. I will always call out anti-Semitism. It's gross, it's immoral, it is a hate crime. There is no space for anti-Semitism. So when I hear from those who have never even cared about anti-Semitism coming in here to like use it, to deploy it cynically, and to say this nasty thing to someone like myself and to others who are simply calling for the emancipation of Palestinians, I lose my fucking mind. It is so gross. It's so disgusting. You are betraying the severity of anti-Semitism when you use it in such a silly way. A great example of this was demonstrated for all to see the other day when that lady walked up and screamed at the face of Jewish people, telling them that they should be put in gas chambers and that Hitler had made a mistake. Here. Do I think anti-Semitism is worse than normal forms of racism? What? There's no racism Olympics. Anti-Semitism is a form of bigotry. It's completely unacceptable. Why is it that this woman's face is not fucking plastered, I wonder, on the cover of New York Post? Will we see this on the front of the New York Times? Because let me tell you, if this was a pro-Israel protest and that was a person wearing, a shamag, a kafia, and went up to pro-Israeli Jewish protesters and said those things, that person would be executed. That person would be ridiculed and would deserve it, by the way. They would deserve it, just as this person deserves it. And yet, for some reason, you will never see this person get that same kind of criticism that fucking college students do that are taking down hostage posters. From the river to the sea is always responded with, that's anti-Semitism, in the same way that Black Lives Matter leads to what about white lives? It's all about the majority / those in power, assuming that those who don't have any power are trying to oust them when they just want the same rights. Exactly, which is why I used the BLM argument when I was talking about it, which is why I think it frustrated a lot of people. And then they went into like ridiculous, gross comparisons like, Arbeit macht frei, like that's an appropriate comparison to make. Disgusting. Or the Confederate flag doesn't mean hatred, it means heritage. Like, disgusting. You should be able to make a clear distinction here, you dumb fuck. You should be able to understand what is moral and what is not moral. Especially if you consider yourself to be one who recognizes that at the top of the hour there's a 3-minute ad break. And if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. Oh, they're doing the Bibi Netanyahu Holocaust revisionism, Holocaust denial. Yeah, it's a really fun one that Ben Shapiro regularly uses as well. It's just like one of the most anti-Semitic things you can fucking do is just like, is just to take away the responsibility of the Holocaust away from Hitler. That's how much you hate Palestinians. Awesome. Sick. Oh, did I break your ankles with that ad break transition? I know. But let's finish this. What Palestinians do want is equal rights. They want to be able to work hard and achieve their dreams without being discriminated against. They want to be able to live where they choose without being told they can't because of their ethnicity or religion. They want to be able to choose leaders who control their lives. In other words, they want freedom. And they want that freedom throughout their historic homeland, not just on the 22% that comprise the West Bank and Gaza Strip. This desire for freedom is what Mark Lamont Hill was invoking when he called for a free Palestine from the river to the sea. His remarks were intended to center Palestinians' aspirations, not disparage leftists. This has been lost on his critics, which speaks to a larger problem. Dismissing or ignoring what this phrase means to the Palestinians is yet another means by which to silence Palestinian perspectives, citing only Hamas's leaders' use of the phrase while disregarding the liberationist context in which other Palestinians understand it, shows a disturbing level of ignorance about Palestinians' views at best and a deliberate attempt to smear their legitimate aspirations at worst. Most troubling for me, the belief that a free Palestine would necessarily lead to the mass annihilation of Jewish Israelis is rooted in deeply racist and Islamophobic assumptions about who the Palestinians are and what they really want. Rather than just lecture Palestinians and their supporters about how certain phrases make them feel, supporters of Israel should get more curious about what Palestinians themselves want. There isn't a single answer. There never is. But assuming you already know is no way to work towards a just and lasting peace. This is from Maha Nassar, an associate professor in the School of Middle Eastern and North African Studies in the University of Arizona, and a 2018 Public Voices Fellow with the Op-Ed Project. Follow her on Twitter at MTNazar. This is from Forward Magazine, Jewish, independent, nonprofit. So, when you see this, you can use the article "From the River to the Sea" doesn't mean what you think it means if you want, but it's gross, and you do not have to concede on this. It is a gross, sick, disgusting, anti-Arab way to deal with a just and moral cause, and the major fucking reason that people do this, do not concede on it. The major reason why people do this is because they want to make it impermissible to defend Palestinians. Okay? no defense that Palestinians can ever engage in, all the way from violent means to nonviolent protests that end up killing a bunch of Palestinians when the Israeli occupying force feels like it, all the way to defending Palestinians in the Western world. None of those things are appropriate and none of them are allowed. At a certain point, you have to realize that, of course, they just do not want you to defend Palestinians. That's it. That's the major reason. Now, you asked, can we focus on Palestine instead of getting stuck in these Zionist traps that they make on purpose to divert the conversation away from genocide in Palestine? Zionists know the statement doesn't call for a genocide of Jewish people. They just do this to make pro-Palestinians waste their time. The semantics of this doesn't matter. Palestinians are getting killed every minute right now. That's a great question. The reason why I focus on it now, in the midst of my intense coverage over the past 29 days, is because we do live in the Western world, and there are some who are new to this that don't understand the dynamics and don't understand the history, and I think that it's important to destroy Hasbara operations like this piece by piece, okay? Especially when you have European countries that are making it illegal to say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And there are 21,000 people in here right now, and it's great for all of them, all 21,000 of them, to understand what this phrase actually means, because they might genuinely, they don't want to be, nobody wants to be anti-Semitic, even on accident, right? Obviously. Like, nobody's going to be deliberately anti-Semitic. So when someone says you're being anti-Semitic, that holds a lot of value, of course. That holds a lot of weight. It's a very serious accusation, especially in a liberal community. We're not like conservatives. We can't just like hand wave that shit away. You know what I mean? This is a serious thing. So I don't want people to like fall into that trap and think, oh my God, I'm so sorry I said something anti-Semitic. I want people to understand the real history behind it and not go along with this lie that people are telling them. Because the real purpose behind it, especially in the Western world, when we talk about this sort of thing, the real purpose behind it is to silence this conversation. Okay? Here's Lolo on the matter as well. Let's see what he has to say. Our boy Lolo. I am going to assume, since you already know this phrase predates Hamas. Can you just be with Lolo every day? No, I can't. Okay. To want to silence genocidal. Here's an article to read. Okay. It is not good faith. I don't care. I don't care if they're not being good faith. I think that at this point, maybe they'll learn. Maybe they'll be able to educate themselves, or at least maybe people who maybe people who are what do you call it? You know what? Actually, I think this is good. It's informative. I'm going to quote tweet it, actually. This is not good faith. They're probably being, what? No, they're not being paid by Israel. Dude, shut up. I'm going to assume you're engaging in good faith since you already know this phrase predates Hamas. And those who want to silence all manner of Palestinian emancipation cynically dupe others into thinking it's genocidal. Here's an article to read. What even is the argument that the saying is anti-Semitic? Is it like that Palestinian movements have been anti-Semitic? Yes. The argument it revolves around Hamas's like 1988 charter says like we must wipe out all the Jews, okay? Which is true, but like when it fucking started, it was nothing. Like Hamas was nothing. It wasn't even remotely popular. And its popularity has only increased. Here you go. This is informative. You can show this to other friends of yours as well who want to know and who want to understand it as well. Like, there are plenty of people who also will make this argument about free Palestine as well, because the reason why people make this exact same argument about free Palestine as well is because ultimately it's coming from the same place. The idea always revolves around demographic fears, okay? if you want to maintain an ethno-state, if you want to maintain an ethno-state, a Jewish ethno-state, if you want to maintain an apartheid, if you want to maintain an occupation, then, of course, anyone that wants democracy and liberation is a threat to that reality. But because Jewish people have been historically wronged, and Israel, and specifically Christian and Jewish Zionists in the Western world, have been able to successfully plant the narrative that, like, Israel is a Jewish state and it must be a Jewish state, because if it's not a Jewish state, then the Holocaust will happen, and that it actually does genuinely defend all of the Jews all around the world, and that's why it exists, because that is the prevailing dominant attitude. Any kind of serious ask, no matter how moral, no matter how just, any kind of serious ask for emancipation and democracy and civil rights and liberties and equal representation for Palestinians can be hand-waved away. And people will say, no, it's anti-Semitic. So it's good. It's good to educate people on this. Hassan, I think you also reiterate on the charter's modification in 2017. It's actually pretty interesting point on how Hamas's interests are now highlighted and how they're trying to reach a more moderate voice than before. People who just learned about the 7th of October don't know that Hamas was actually more radical and extremist at their beginnings. Yes, but I've talked about this a lot. But like ultimately, it doesn't matter, because Hamas's designation is a terror cell. So them like changing their charter in 2017 is not going to like convince people that they're all like. It's picking and choosing what you believe in, right? You believe Hamas in 1988 because it suits your argument. It suits your purpose. You don't believe Hamas in 2017 because it doesn't suit your purpose. It doesn't suit your argument. I don't believe in either of the charters. I don't give a shit. I don't care about what like Hamas says they care about, because the only reason for its existence is that they have been the only group that has sought violent retaliation to defend Palestinians historically, as the Israeli government that holds all the power has ritualistically humiliated, bullied, and destroyed the effectiveness of all conciliatory aspects within the Palestinian movement. And they've done this deliberately, Benjamin Netanyahu being the worst actor in this process, but has openly stated why he has done this, right? So that's why, like, this is such a gross thing to do. Like, the swastika predates the use by the Nazi party. Like, it's so fucking insane. Anyway, that'll be the last time that I try to. All I see is that when you engage with people like that, you are engaging with a million like her also. You are making cracks in their worldview. Some of them are now going to do their own research. Keep up the good work. Yeah, that's the reason why I do it. The reason why I do it is because no matter how fucking hate-filled someone might be, there's always going to be people that look at this and go, maybe I'll read this article. Maybe I'll develop a different perspective. I don't want to be as cynical, because if I lose sight of, what is this? Short 4 to 5 hour stream? What the fuck is this? I don't give a shit about this. Why are you sending me this shit? If I lose sight of the belief that I have that I can change people's minds on this, because like some people will always inadvertently approach it in good faith, then there's no reason for me. There's no reason for me to do what I do. Like, oh, well, people have made their minds up. If your ultimate goal is to defeat Hamas, you need to delegitimize his leadership by abolishing apartheid conditions and establishing a one-state solution that respects Palestinians' humanity. I mean, the question is this, like, given how the Israeli occupation continued in the way that it did, that far predates Hamas's existence, like, when in tomorrow's time, when, let's say, Hamas magically is eviscerated, wiped out in its entirety, is Israel going to go, all right, it's a one-state solution time now? Like, we actually have decided we're going to take all the Palestinians in? The ones that we haven't ethnically cleansed? No. So what the fuck are we doing? What are we talking about? This is what I meant by my other message. This video explains it. from Norman Finkelstein. The point is, we never want to talk about or a lot of people don't want to talk about the actual actual things that Israeli officials are saying, and they are the ones who hold all the power. And anytime you don't talk about like what the Israeli officials are saying on the matter, and you turn the conversation back to like what Palestinians actually mean, right? You're just using that as an opportunity to just like distract people, to move away.
What does "from the river to the sea" mean? It's a chant that some people are saying at pro-Palestinian protests. My cat is saying it right now. And someone asked me, I'm a big supporter of you and your content, think I might be misinformed. As I've always been told, it refers to the removal of Jews from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean. Can you help clarify for me? Here's the truth about it. You can Google what does it mean, and you're going to find two different answers what it means. One of those answers is going to tell you what you just said, that's what it means. And the people interested in suggesting that it means that are often and almost exclusively Zionists. Now, Zionist doesn't mean that they're necessarily Jewish. They could be Jewish, but a Zionist is a person who supports the settler colonial project that is Israel, right? A country that is governed by a right-wing government and supported by the United States that still is and has been for the last several weeks relentlessly bombing Gaza and now attacking the West Bank as well, and has already killed over 8,000 people, right? Plenty of Palestinians have said that this phrase does not mean that. It means freedom for the people there, equality, liberation for people living under occupation. Netanyahu's own party, as if to stick a finger in the eye of Palestinians, in their founding charter, it says that there will only be Israeli sovereignty between the sea and the Jordan. And considering the actions of that government, what it's doing and has been doing right now, and has also been doing for decades, I'm going to say maybe one of these has more evidence for genocidal intent. And in my opinion, it's kind of totally irrelevant, because what's actually happening right now is thousands of people are being killed and hundreds of thousands of people are being driven out of their homes, and their lives are being destroyed. So I don't really care about a chant at a protest where people are saying, hey, can you stop doing that? Can we have a ceasefire? I don't care is the thing. No, I don't believe that there's a genocidal intent behind it, but it's in the eye of the beholder, so it's really whatever you want. Personally, I think people using that are just creating cover for the horrible fucking shit that the Israeli government is doing. And any concern about that kind of thing is a projection because of literally what they are doing.
Yeah. God, that guy's so based. Anyway, Bernard Sanders came out with a statement that's like too little and too late, according to Ofer Kasif. I'm not even going to talk about it. The CNN segment on the anniversary of Yitzhak Rabin's assassination.
War rages again in the most contested land on earth. I've been thinking.
You know what? Let's talk about Yitzhak Rabin. We should. Important. Some people consider him to be a person that legitimately was motivated by a person who was legitimately motivated by like Palestinian emancipation. It's not the case at all. I think that there are there are more serious assessments. Let's hear what they were going to say
about the peacemakers and what history can teach us. Exactly 28 years ago today.
No, Yitzhak Rabin is not the original Dan Crenshaw. That's the other guy, Dayan. I think was it Moshe Dayan, the one with the fucking eye patch.
Hey, the Israeli Prime Minister.
That's like that should clue you in, dude. Like that should clue you in. That's like just evil guy, okay? Straight up. Yeah, Moshe Dayan, evil guy, evil. You can't. It's an eye patch guy. Automatically, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Hold on. What's going on there? Are you a pirate? What's happening?
Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated by an extremist Jewish militant, Yigal Amir, who opposed his efforts to make peace with the Palestinians under the Oslo Accords. Rabin had been a war hero. Just before his murder, he declared, "I have always believed most of the people want peace and are ready to take a risk for it." So did the hope die with him? I wanted to remember his loss and what might have been, and the extremists who opposed him. In this
Yeah. So one thing to mention here is that I actually tweeted about this earlier today. So Yitzhak Rabin was not a good guy. Okay. He was certainly in that time and place, the, I guess, like the most tolerant, but it's important to recognize that he wasn't necessarily like a peace-loving hippie. When you say like, oh, he's a veteran, you have to understand, like, a veteran of what, right? He was, I forget which. Hold on, I'll look it up. I don't want to fuck this up, but he was a veteran, just like many at the time in the Israeli Knesset and Israeli politics were and still are. But he was not necessarily kind or tolerant to Palestinians. He also said that time and time again, whether because it was a political consideration, that he was trying to like tone his temperament to adjust it to an Israeli to an Israeli audience, to make it better and more sellable. But he did mention time and time again that this was supposed to be a state. This was not a real state. Like the statehood offerings that Yitzhak Rabin made were not full. Like, they were not real states. 28 years ago, Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated for pushing for a solution. While lots of us in Israel are stuck with the numbing nostalgia of what if, it's crucial to acknowledge two elements which are responsible and still with us: Hamas and Netanyahu and the settler right. Those lumping in Hamas with Palestinian struggle for self-determination forget or cynically gloss over Hamas blew up buses with women and children in an effort to thwart any chance of normalcy to stop Oslo in its tracks. This part is true. However, I think that it leaves a little bit of information out of this. I think this person is great. Like, I mean, this is a Haaretz writer. I think I don't think he's like a bad person in general, but I do think that it leaves out a little bit of information here. Because I said, while this is correct, Israel's policy of neutering any Palestinian leader foolish enough to negotiate with it also played a role in Hamas gaining momentum in this time frame. The exact same issues with the PA now was happening to a conciliatory Arafat who got nothing and was stalled, right? I will admit, while this thread says Rabin wanted a full state, something he said he didn't want, possibly for political reasons, but everyone that came after him was significantly worse. They killed the guy, and then they voted for those who called for his killing. This is something that you have to always remember.
This excerpt from our documentary, God's Warriors.
At a ceremony at the White House in 1993, two mortal enemies, Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and the chairman of the Palestine Liberation Organization, Yasser Arafat, signed a peace treaty. The deal included withdrawal from part of what Israel captured in the Six-Day War. It was a historic step towards an independent Palestinian state.
I mean, that's a little bit of a cap there.
Enough of blood and tears. Enough.
Yaakov Barnea, the secular Israeli who helped capture East Jerusalem in 1967, was hopeful.
I had a tremendous appreciation for those who made it happen, and for Rabin's courage in going this way.
But Hanan Porat, who also fought in the Six-Day War, opposed the creation of a Palestinian state.
If you think we are messianic with our beliefs, then what they think, those who believe in peace with the Palestinians, is pure mysticism.
To God's Jewish warriors, turning land over to the Palestinians would just bring more blood and more tears.
Rabin is trying with the Palestinians against Israel because he's blind.
It was especially difficult to accept because Rabin had been a military hero since Israel's creation.
And yet, he was willing to make peace with the Palestinians.
Religious historian...
I think Rabin understood that. I think Rabin understood something that many have chosen to completely disregard because of their supremacist points of view, which was, in order to have long-lasting peace, doesn't matter, you have to, even if you don't personally care about the plight of Palestinians, you have to deal with them, okay? And it's true. It's fucking true. Yes, Rabin is the dude who said, break the children's bones, when I think he was he the defense minister at the time? Yes, during the first Intifada. Rabin was the one who suggested bone breaking as a successful policy, deliberately, including children's hands, because they would throw rocks. That was like a thing. That was a form of resistance against the occupation at the time, and bone breaking was supposed to, like, basically stop children from being able to throw rocks. So it wasn't just deterrence. It was like there was a humiliation factor into it, because it's always about cruelty. It's always about humiliation and subjugation. So he just didn't want to integrate the West Bank and Gaza into Israel so that Israel remains a Jewish majority state. That's one aspect of this as well. But, of course, a non-starter. It was always a non-starter that, like, there would be a right to return, which was a big fucking point of contention. Remember, like, if you believe in the Palestinian plight, if you understand that they're human beings, and you see millions of them in permanent refugee status that have been, like, shut out of their homes, shut out of their villages, shut out of their way of existence, that are now stuck in limbo, multi-generational limbo, okay? You realize, like, this is a honest and totally just demand to make, okay? But the demand it always fell flat. There was no interest in this, right? There was no interest in this whatsoever. So while I will say, like, Ehud Barak and also Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, were never really interested in genuinely dealing with the PLO and giving Palestinians anything, and simply use it as a stalling tactic to basically continue building settlements and expanding into the West Bank and walling up the West Bank on top of that in an effort to just starve out all the Palestinians that you partitioned into, like a non-contiguous contiguous state, even though it's technically their own fucking land and their own state. It was like Rabin, at the very least, made an earnest effort in comparison to those that came after him, despite the fact that it was not one born out of the understanding that a Palestinian is a human being, but instead one that a group of individuals that have to be dealt with in a more conciliatory manner in an effort to stop terrorism and in an effort to stop a single state solution dead in its tracks. Because a single state solution was the big fear that all Israelis had, all Israelis in the Knesset had, all Israeli politicians have had. Why? Because, and this is their own admission, this would pose a demographic nightmare. Why would this be a demographic nightmare? Of course, well, because all of a sudden you would have so many Palestinians that are voting. We simply cannot give them the rights and the responsibility of being a part of our civil society. They have always been and always will be afraid of a potential Arab majority. Now, if you too are also Islamophobic, then yes, you also agree with that. You're like, yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Totally. But it's disgusting and gross. All right.
Bruce Lawrence.
All of the people whom we describe as fundamentalists have rhetoric which talks about good and evil, but the greatest evil is the Jew who's compromised. And so Rabin becomes a symbol of the real enemy.
Yigal Amir decided that, in his words, he had to save the nation.
I just put him in the same basket in which I put the suicide bomber of Hamas, which means a fanatic religious person who does his act for political purposes.
Noah Rothman, Rabin's granddaughter, was a teenager at the time.
Did he express concerns? Were you concerned about his safety from within Israel?
No, we were never concerned. The feeling was that my grandfather was very much loved among the Israelis.
Except that's crazy. They were calling for his assassination. And they were calling for his assassination before they assassinated him. And also, the people who were calling for his assassination, Benjamin Netanyahu, for example, would have most likely defeated him anyway in the upcoming elections. So that's important to understand. Why is that important to understand? Because for, as an apartheid state, there is still a semblance of like a political process that you could, I guess, understand as democracy if you just assume that those who are subjects of the apartheid state do not matter, right? And the people internally in the occupation, like their perspective was very clear. It was one that did not want to deal with the Arabs at all. Benjamin Netanyahu was warned by the internal intelligence agencies and by the Knesset to stop and maybe temper his anti-Rabin protest that he was throwing at the time with the Likud party. He told him to fuck off. And in those protests, they were burning Yitzhak Rabin. They portrayed him as a Nazi. Okay? Wow, you're so wrong. The reason he got assassinated is because he broke the rule of making peace with the Palestinian. Wait, what? What do you mean? How am I so wrong? You basically admitted what I just said. You repeated what I just said. What? I don't understand.
They loved him.
But protests against Rabin's peace deal were often laced with hate. A few rabbis even invoked a medieval Jewish death curse.
It affected somebody like Yigal Amir.
On November 4th, 1995, Yitzhak Rabin attended a peace rally in Tel Aviv. Some 100,000 supporters were there, singing Shir HaShalom, Song of Peace.
This part is important. Like, there were a lot of Rabin supporters, and I would say that there has never been I don't think there's ever been that level of mass mobilization and mass momentum that even has been interested in like a normalizing relations with the Arabs in the region, or with Palestinians in general since then.
After Rabin left the stage and walked to his car, Amir moved close to the bodyguards, pulled a gun, and fired.
Why did you laugh when the doctor mentioned this guy? What do you mean? Which doctor? Why did I laugh when the doctor mentioned Yitzhak Rabin? I don't know what the context was. Do you mean Ofer Kasif? I don't know what context he brought Rabin up in. So, I think he probably was talking about the Labor Party and how like institutionally neutered they are or something. Maybe that's what we were laughing at. I don't know. I don't remember.
Many believe the peace process died that night as well.
The tragedy.
Oh, he was talking about right-winger Zoomers who... Oh, yeah. Yeah, people... Like, Zoomers think fucking Rabin was assassinated by an Arab. Like a Palestinian. That's what I was probably laughing at. The fact that, like... the fact that it is so unimaginable from an outsider's perspective to have, like, that level of hatred for someone who was trying to deal with the Palestinians, that, like... It's always, like... Everything is attributed to the enemy in Israel, right? Like it's like, oh, Rabin was assassinated. It could not have been. If you're from the outside looking in and you're not fully aware of Israeli history, of course you would lead to that that assumption, like where, yeah, obviously, what the fuck would it be like? Yeah, clearly they're not Israeli. Everyone is educated on Rabin here. Yeah. I'm saying. Dr. Ofer Kassif was saying that, like, I think right-wing Zoomers, like a younger generation of, like, right-wing people outside of Israel, think that, like, Rabin was assassinated by Arabs.
Besides our personal tragedy is that he was stopped in the middle of the way, and we can never know how the end of the path would have been.
Yigal Amir was sentenced to life in prison.
Piece of shit.
Carmi Gilon, chief of Shin Bet, was forced to resign over his agency's failure to protect their prime minister.
And 7 months later, in May of 1996, Rabin's widow, Leah, joined me for our CNN election coverage in Israel, where Likud's Benjamin Netanyahu was making his first run for prime minister, trying to
Dude, I'm not... Literally just the most, like... Oh, my God. The most Hitlerian motherfucker, dude. I just... Oh, his image. Just... The amount of... The more you read about Benjamin Netanyahu, the more you develop this, like... Just anger inside of you. He is... God, imagine... Think about it, dude. Think about it this way. Like... Let's be real. I don't think a lot of Israelis are very careful or considerate about Palestinian people. You know, you can't really do that and also live in an apartheid state, right? You would probably, if you had a moral consideration, you'd probably fight back against your country doing these sorts of things, right? And even then, they're like, we fucking hate this guy. Think about that.
Seat Rabin's successor, fellow peacemaker and labor leader Shimon Peres.
Of course, if Labor doesn't win today, then his loss was in vain, and then his loss was a triumph.
Yeah, we showed you the video where Netanyahu literally said immediately after Rabin's assassination, he said, I hate that he was killed because I could never defeat him now when I was supposed to.
To the murderer and to those who sent him, because he wasn't there a free agent on his own. He was sent by someone. He was incited by many people in this country. So it will be their triumph. And I don't want to see that happening. And I see that, and if we win, yes, then at least we can say this murder wasn't totally in vain.
Your husband's successor, Mr. Peres, has...
Who's responsible for more instability and death, Kissinger or Netanyahu? Oh, Kissinger. Come on. That's not even a... No. Henry Kissinger. Yes. Like, that's not even a thing.
has accused his opponent of inciting fear again and playing on the fears of people during this election. If Mr. Netanyahu wins this election, can you support him and his policies? Will you do so?
Mr. Netanyahu?
Yeah.
Never.
Would you be able to work with him? How do you think it'll...
With Mr. Netanyahu? You must be joking. Of course not. I never will work with him, and I never will support him.
The late Leah Rabin.
Anyway, so good way to understand this a little bit. But remember, every time any kind of consideration has been brought in front of the Palestinians, their interests have never been represented. Their interests have never been represented at all because the facilitator, like, I guess, like, I remember someone in my chat asking, like, why are Norwegians like weirdly fucking based on Palestine? I guess, you know, they are the one group of individuals that kind of recognize the humanity of the situation. Swedes are, you know, they go back and forth. Some Swedes are pretty good at it too. Obviously, you have Olof Palme. And the Irish are always historically very much in support. But
We have a comrade from Korea! Juhan from Nogo!
this is the goddamn.
Gaza, Gaza, don't you cry!
This is the DC protests that are happening. Breakthrough News is right there on the ground, covering it live. I'm passing. I absolutely love the Irish. Yeah, the Irish have always been historically on the side of the Palestinian. On the Palestinian side. Irish have experience with the English silly lines on a map and how that causes issues. Yes. Please, Netanyahu's replacement clarified. His humanitarian ethnic cleansing plan, I physically cannot. Ram Ben Barak says, those who think that I have joined the extreme right circles, you can relax. The intention is to build a coalition of countries and international funding that will allow Gazans who want to leave to be absorbed into them with citizenship and proper absorption basket. Guys, it's not ethnic cleansing. It's ethnic displacement. It's just a trail of tears, guys. You don't understand. Fuck. Don't worry. I'm doing ethnic displacement, which is woke. Unlike the transfer program of the right, this will be by agreement and with the aim of giving them an opportunity to escape the reign of fear of Hamas, which uses them as human shield. I like that even here, the argument is that, like, okay, so if they do stay, then, you know, they're human shield. Right? If they do stay, if they choose to stay in the circumstance, well, they're then human shield. Duh. Centrist liberalism in Israel and where it stands is pretty funny. Leave the leader, Hamas, what? What do you mean?
We have a question. We are Jews in Byers District. I'm Rose. This
He's
is
like,
Elaine.
uh-oh.
Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, everybody. And Speaker Emerita, we want to know, will you support a ceasefire in Gaza? Yes or no?
Let me interrupt you for a second. This is not a town hall meeting.
Yes or
There
no?
is a genocide happening in Palestine. Children are dying. We should care. It goes against the status quo, but right now there's an urgent humanitarian crisis. We need our politicians to care. Our tax dollars are funding genocide. $106 million of Virginia.
Of your disrespect for the other people in the program that is here. This is a very important question, and I hear it morning, noon, and night outside my home. We certainly are concerned about the life of every person, whether they're in Gaza or whether they're in Israel. They're calling for a ceasefire. Okay, ceasefire is a gift to Hamas. We have to have a humanitarian pause so we can get the hostages out. We have to get that, and that is the policy of our President of the United States. who cares deeply about the loss of life on all sides. I don't know why people, if they want to go to war, they don't declare war and go in there and fight military to military, like a guy. You know, be a man, okay? I mean, you think that's such a big deal, go be one, right? But they don't. They go after children too.
I assume she's talking about the Israeli occupying force here, right? Oh, she's not. Oh, okay.
200 kids at a rave. 200 kids killed at a dance. It was a horrible thing. It doesn't justify any loss, commensurate loss of life of civilians that can be avoided.
What about 5,000 dead Palestinian children?
And that is what I'm going to say.
Ghouls, goblins, demons, all around. Pieces of shit. What are you going to do? That's just America, baby. Scoop. Israel's detailed plan of allowing fuel into Gaza if hospitals run out. Israel has told the U.S. about a contingency plan for getting fuel into southern Gaza under international monitoring if more hospitals run out. What about the northern Gaza? From the heart of the West Bank, just wanted to thank you for your coverage and thank everyone that came out to the protest from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Be safe, my friend. Be safe. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that, especially in like the last barrage, every single time Hamas has opened fire on Israeli territory, knowing full well that like none of those rockets are actually gonna hit fucking any targets. They've done so because of Israel's actions in the West Bank. Always. Okay? Always. At a certain point, you have to recognize, like, okay, my internal security apparatus is warning me that we need to fucking dial it back a ton, that this is going to cause a lot of anger, and we must do something about it. But no, of course not. That is why I say that the goal there, you might agree with it, you might not agree with it, but the goal there is to show that the occupation will be costly, that it is not without cost. That's the goal. To say that if you keep beating the shit out of like grandmothers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, okay, if you sick settlers on, if you try to take more land from Sheikh Jarrah, if you try to keep bullying and humiliating Palestinians in the West Bank, then they will take some kind of retaliatory action. And everyone knows this. Everyone knows this. That's why people are so mad. Anyway. There is no effective way of defeating militancy and terrorism by blowing up schools and hospitals and killing almost 10,000 Palestinians. The only thing you will do is create more militancy. Never forget, okay? The occupying force sets the standard of violence. Meanwhile, here is some of the tactics now being applied by Hamas, the Al-Qassam, the militant faction, the Al-Qassam brigades, showing their fighters engaging in eye of invaders on point-blank range in the outskirts of the Al-Shati camp and Sheikh Radwan neighborhood. 10 vehicles have been destroyed and a green flag raised above the bulldozer. The editing is out of control. I don't know how the fuck. Like, you have to, dude, look at this. Look at this. Look at what this motherfucker's wearing. That's like an 18-year-old, dude. That's an 18-year-old with a homemade rocket-propelled grenade launcher. Okay? No uniform, no nothing. And that's not because, like, these guys want to hide amongst the civilians. I know people always fucking say that. Oh, it's like, that's part of it. Like, no. Half of the time, they just don't have any fucking... They don't have anything. That's not homemade, probably manufactured since it has nothing unusual or welding marks. Okay, I'm saying that it's like, it's shitty. This is by the way, the video you're about to see for Norman Finkelstein, a guy literally says Israel's every right to put a blockade on Gaza because Hamas is a threat to Israel. Yeah, that's it's fine. I'm sure Norman will fucking rip him. Who's the best editing ever is what you were going to say. I mean, it's wild that, like, these dudes that are being, like, fucking ruthlessly bombed are sitting inside of fucking tunnels and, like, they got cap cut.
ولعت ولعت
Is there a merit in talking about how much this conflict benefits Bibi when his coalition was in decline in recent years? This would propel the ultra-right back into prominence. Brother, the difference between the ultra-right and the far-right and, like, the moderate right is marginal in terms of, like, how Palestinians are treated. There's no group, there's no coalition that is taking the threat of the occupation seriously, okay? Every single person is universally saying, like, no, these guys, they all deserve to be wiped out. They have to be wiped out. We have to wipe out Hamas. Just like the fucking 10 other sieges that have occurred. You know what I mean? But the reason why this is important to see is because, like, these are dudes wearing fake ass Adidas, okay? Busted ass Adidas. Who threw me that busted ass Adidas? And fucking no infantry on the Merkavas or the armored personnel. This is not a Merkava. This is an armored personnel carrier, I think. But, like, no infantry support whatsoever. And from what I understand, it is literally because it's because they're just, like, worried about casualties.
اضرب اضرب هاي قبالك الله اكبر ولله الحمد الله اكبر ولله الحمد
جعلنا من بين ايديهم سدا.
That's Caterpillar IDF 9.
فهم لا يبصرون.
يا رب هاي دباباتهم هاي جرافاتهم والله إنها بإذن الله ستكون دمار ووبال عليهم.
Where is the close infantry support? This is ridiculous for a modern military operating armored vehicles in urban areas. Yeah. Their policy is, in order to avoid, like, casualties, they don't have infantry, I think. Like, as far as I've seen, they rarely ever have infantry. But maybe it's because, like, maybe it's... look, I'm not a fucking military specialist by any means, but I do know that there's supposed to be infantry support on tanks, especially in urban areas when you're engaging in urban combat. Tanks already are difficult and costly. And, I mean, they're fucking popping these, like, $10+ million tanks. They don't use infantry to avoid soldiers getting captured and taken hostage. But no infantry armor means, no infantry means armored vehicles are just steel coffins. Did you see our combat footage coping hard over this? No infantry supports because they're filming TikToks? No, the reason why they don't want to fucking do infantry support is because, like, I think they're afraid. This is guys, 300,000 reservists with so much to lose. Why in the ever-loving fuck would they want to go out there? Like, dudes that just, like, want to sit in the tank with fucking air conditioning don't want to be outside. They're not well-trained. They're used to just, like, fucking, doming random civilians and shit. What the fuck do they, what kind of experience do they have? So IDF troops can be found outside of tanks when fighting in Gaza, as in when they're needed to give interviews to Channel 13 news crew that has accompanied them into the strip. An interview that then rapidly ends when Hamas starts firing at them because they're just standing around. I don't think the other thing is the IDF hates taking casualties. That sadly is the metric that is in play now. When it gets too costly, they'll stop. Yeah. The other part of it is because drone warfare is so cost effective. Like for any kind of insurgency movement in urban combat, especially, it's like you can get a fucking $100 drone and drop a goddamn grenade on an entire troop, as they have done. Anytime you see you're focusing on the bulk of the IDF infantry and neglecting the very well-trained and armed special forces. Yes. Just like there are armed and trained forces on the Palestinian side, there are, of course, very well-trained IDF infantry or very well-trained armed special forces within the IDF as well. The difference is the fucking dudes in the fucking busted-ass Adidas tracksuits can take down a $10 million piece of equipment with a virtually homemade rocket. Okay? It's entirely disproportionate. And it benefits the insurgency side. Now, there are, I have been looking at the IDF footage that's been released as well. The IDF said they found tunnels, but they can't go in them as a tactic because they already went to fake tunnels leading to a dead end and got bombed. They've been inside of tunnels. They sent dogs in. I watched the videos. They strap dogs with GoPro cameras, and they have like attack dogs that they send into the tunnels because they don't want to go down there. The dog was fake. Wait, really? That's a fake video? That was a training video? I got Hasbro. I'm sorry. Wait, give me the mock. Give me the fucking mock video. There's a training video from 2014. God, I can't trust, dude. That's what you get for trusting anything that comes from a fucking IDF source, dude. Fucking, I just got fucking. What would it be? How come you trust the IDF? Wait, what do you mean? I look at both sides all the time. Oh, here it is. This is the one. This is, I guess it's fake. Hamas terrorist screams when a dog found him in a tunnel. I mean, where did I get this from? I got it from somewhere. I saw it on another account. You want to know what the problem is? You want to know what the problem is with these videos? Like, the problem with videos like this is, like, for example, there's what is it, the Gaza Watch or whatever? There are, here, be aware that there are Israel's very own accounts that portray themselves as Arab, okay? That is supposedly giving information from the ground. The issue is, I know what a lot of those accounts are, but there are also other observers that I rely on that are, and rely on their analysis, that get duped by these motherfuckers sometimes, and that ends up, when I see it from when I see it from an account like that, not from like a Daily Wire source or whatever, but when I see it from an account like that, then I take it a little bit more seriously. Why would he be masked in a tunnel amount? I don't know, but I guess it is a training video. It says the dogs chase Hamas dogs until victory. A very weird phrasing. This is not an Arabic person writing this. Yeah. He's wearing a padded suit. Where is it? Let me see. I only see the balaclava for like a second. It does seem like he's wearing them. Why is there a video for the dog? Is the dog watching this? I mean, it makes sense that they have a video on it. Because it's from if it's from training. That's a bite suit. You can see when he puts his arms up. Wait, really? Why would there be? But he has like fingerless gloves on. They don't bite the fingers. IDF actually came out on Twitter after this and clarified it was from training. Huh. I'm curious, do you think Hamas being a religious militant group undermines their legitimacy to the world as a resistance group armed compared to the ANC or Viet Cong? Well, don't be curious about that. I can tell you that during the ANC's resistance to the apartheid and during the Vietnamese resistance to the occupation, the world still considered them to be terrorists and wrong and immoral, regardless of their religious backgrounds. The difference is those who know what the ultimate goals are for Hamas, who understand it, who read and write about the situation, will regularly recognize that like the comparison to ISIS is completely ridiculous. It is an Islamist group. That is true. Okay? It is true. They are. However, they're while Hamas is an Islamist group, the reason why they are considered somewhat popular now, at least more popular now than they ever have been, is not because they're an Islamist group. It's not because they're a fundamentalist group or anything like that. A lot of those fucking 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, they don't fucking give a shit about Islam like that, dude. Get the fuck out of here. Their parents have died. That's it. Their parents have died. They have nothing. So they're like, okay, fuck this shit. And also, most people will openly and readily recognize that it is supposed to be a resistance group, not a Islamist group that is like interested in taking over other parts of the territory. That's it. It's not like it's not a offensive strategy. It's more of a defensive posture. Can I join you Discord and talk about the truth of war, please? Today, motherfucker, IDF killed people in a hospital. Bro, that's fake. Haha. I read somewhere that a lot of secular Palestinians joined Hamas after 2007, try to moderate the group, kind of like the DSA trying to change the Dems from within, I guess. Yes, that is true. That's not a joke. That's why they changed the charter in 2017. That literally isn't a joke. There are internal factions within Hamas that like have nothing to do with an Islamist attitude at all, and literally want to become an internationally recognized group.
Damn, this guy's good.